guys, it's Alice, and today I'm going to talk about the books I read in the last part of June. The first book that I finished was Call Me By Your Name by Andrea Aciman. This is a coming-of-age romance, and it's set in the Italian Riviera, where an intense romance blossoms between an adolescent boy and this 24-year-old who is a house guest of the family for the summer. So this book was just wow. And it's one of those books that it's so hard to articulate what I think about it, but in very short terms, it was amazing and I loved it. This is an intimate, painful, and beautiful story about a young man coming to terms with himself and his feelings. And yes, it is very much about this romantic relationship, but it's also about this man coming of age. It's about a life-defining romance, and it's about sex and intimacy and everything in between. And one thing that I think is absolutely amazing about this book is that I felt like I was so much inside the main character's head, and the way that he has all of these complicated and complex emotions and thoughts, it was just incredible. I absolutely adore the writing style in this, although I can understand why maybe not everyone would love it, but I just felt like the way that it captured everything was so raw and intimate, and I just love the way that it describes desire and longing, and it's just so agonizing in the way that it's written in a lot of ways, and there's an intensity to this that is just amazing. But it's like intense, but it's like a calm intensity. This isn't a plot-heavy novel at all. It is very much about the characters and their thoughts and emotions, and it does get a little bit repetitive, but I honestly didn't mind. I just loved every single bit of it, and I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. The second book that I read was an ebook, and it was White Rage by Carol Anderson. This is a nonfiction book, and it takes a look at all the time from the Civil War in America up until present day, exploring conversations about race and the history of race and the powerful forces that have opposed the progress of Black people in America. This was an interesting and educational read, and overall a very, very good book. What this does is that it very succinctly explains and explores the advances that the Black population in America have made since the end of slavery and the constant opposition that that has sparked. And you very much get the sense of this like 2-step forward, 1 step back thing that's happening, because every time they make advances, white people push back against it, and it makes for depressing but very educational reading. It's a painful book to read in a lot of ways, but I think it's important that it is that way, because this part of history is difficult to grasp and it's difficult to look at, but it's important that you do it anyway. And it really shows how ingrained racism is in America and how deep it really goes. And one thing that I learned a lot from this is that a lot of the things that have been hailed as like amazing Black advancement in America actually ended up not working that well, because other stupid people came in and just tried to make them not work the way that they were supposed to, and then they didn't. It's definitely a book that makes you think, and I feel like it's a great read if you feel like you don't have a full grasp of the history of the oppression of Black people in America. It's very easy to read and it's not that long, and I would definitely recommend it, and I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. The last 3 books that I read this month, I made a whole reading vlog about, and I feel like I talked about these books so much in that vlog that I'm gonna try and keep these reviews relatively brief. And the first one that I read was The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides. This is a mystery thriller, and it's about this woman who has murdered her husband, and she's been committed to this institution. And since she killed her husband, she hasn't spoken a single word, and it's been like 6 years. And she catches the interest of this psychotherapist who applies for a job at this institution just so he can try to treat her. This was very readable and pretty interesting, and I enjoyed it. This is one of those books that I had definitely heard a lot about before I started reading it, and that hyped me up a little bit. And although I did enjoy it, it didn't blow me away as much as I sort of wanted it to. I did really like getting to know our characters in here though, and I like the way that it switches between present day and the past, and the way that it switches between different perspectives. I feel like that worked well, and there is something very captivating about this. I do think that we spent a lot of time in this just building up to the end though, and I feel like I would have loved to have more sort of twists and turns along the way, and I felt like because we spend the majority of this novel just building up to one thing, when we got to that thing, I was surprised, but I was a little bit underwhelmed, just because I felt like we built it up so much and then it just didn't quite get there for me. It's definitely one of those books that starts off kind of slow, but it is very compelling still, so I think it's worth a read if you like mystery thrillers, and I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. I will say though that if you have read a lot of mystery thrillers, a lot of the stuff in here you may be able to see coming. Second to last, I finished I'll Never Tell by Catherine Mackenzie. This is a mystery thriller, and the story is about these 5 siblings who gather at this camp after their parents have passed away. And they have spent their whole childhoods at this camp, and it was run by their parents, and they're trying to figure out what to do with this camp, and they're there for the reading of the will. But their parents have left kind of odd instructions, and the instructions have something to do with this young girl who was found bludgeoned in a boat 20 years earlier at the camp. This was very engaging and suspenseful, and I really enjoyed it. And I especially love the setting of this and the atmosphere, and I just think that there is this amazing suspense throughout this whole novel. I thought the characters in here were interesting, a little unlikable, but I generally like reading about those types of characters. I don't think all of them are like fully fleshed out because there are a lot of characters in here, but I really enjoyed reading about them and reading about the relationships between all of them, and slowly but surely learning everyone's secrets. I generally found this to be really engrossing and easy to read, and I love all of the little twists and turns we get along the way. We get all of these puzzle pieces as we go, and it's really interesting to try and put them together, and it's one of those novels where you kind of just suspect everyone. I did find the ending of this slightly underwhelming, but getting there was very enjoyable and entertaining, and I gave this a 3 out of 5 stars. It's definitely worth a read if you like mystery thrillers, and it's perfect to read during like late summer and early fall because that is when this is set. The last book that I finished was The Turn of the Key by Ruth Ware. This is, again, a mystery thriller, and it's about this nanny who is accused of having caused the death of one of the kids she was supposed to look after, but she claims she is innocent, and she is trying to enlist the help of this lawyer, and she writes him letters chronicling everything that happened to try and make him understand what happened. There are so many things that I love about this book. I love the setting. It's not only set in like the middle of nowhere in Scotland, but it's also set in this like weird Victorian technology house that is very interesting to read about. I think the atmosphere is fantastic. I love the suspense in this, and I love how like creepy and spooky it gets. And I really enjoyed getting to know our characters and everybody's secrets and the secrets of this really creepy place. The writing in here is addictive and compelling, and it's just spooky enough to at least give me chills, which I loved. I also thought the ending of this was excellent. I loved the reveal. I was so surprised and so shocked, and it's exactly the thing that I want from mystery thrillers, to be like so taken aback, and I feel like probably most people want that from mystery thrillers, but yeah, that's exactly what this did. I do think there are parts in here that drag, and I don't think that all of the characters are equally well developed, but my enjoyment of this was just so high that I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars, and I would definitely recommend it if you're up for something suspenseful and a little creepy. Okay guys, those were all of the books that I finished in the last part of June. I'd love to know what you guys have been reading lately, and I will see you soon. Bye!